Hello, folks. For the ones who saw me this morning, welcome again. And for the ones who are just back after the break, I hope you're all energized, because what I'm going to take you through is definitely going to leave you with more energy, I promise. So, yeah, thanks to Preeti for that warm introduction. I'm Aishwarya, product builder, like she mentioned. And one of the things that I've been doing over the last many months is explore something called the GenAI video space. So every time I started with it, it was always giving me a new insight. So it led me to a learning that I thought, why don't I consolidate and talk about it? So before I start, one context that I wanted to set is, when I was learning GenAI filmmaking and probably making videos, there was one set of people who perhaps would tell me, you know, Aishwarya, you're probably creative. I mean, you're an artist, so obviously you get a lot of ideas. So it's okay for you to start or make videos because you have a place to begin with. But I'm not very creative. I don't even get creative ideas. So I guess filmmaking is not for me. So this is one section of, thought that I get from people. The other section is perhaps that they would try to say, AI is just killing creativity. AI cannot match with art, and AI is just out of art, and art is all about original self, and that's the school of thought. While the secondary school of thought is something people are very confident about, and each person has their own opinion. So I'm not going to talk about that part of it. But the first part that we spoke of, hey, I'm not creative. I have not drawn one single straight line in my life. I have probably not even created any video at all. So I think this is clearly not for me, is what one section of audience would say. So that is what I want to break at the end of this session, because what I'm going to be talking about is actually to help you all get started, even though you've not painted, taken a photograph, or done anything remotely in a creative space as this. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. This is something we might have probably heard 10 or even 15 or sometimes even hundreds and thousands of times growing up. And it's one of the favorite phrases all of our teachers had. And trust me, we all got extra marks in the science exams, right? Whenever we had 10 paragraphs, we always drew a nice diagram there and counted up for it to say, oh, visual really matters. Yes, as a visual thinker, I would agree with this too, to say that human brains capture visuals much more quicker, so design is better. But in fact, the inverse is getting more true now. So what is the inverse there? The 1,000 words that is actually making a picture more worth. So that's exactly where we are with AI. With AI, the whole narrative is changing, because even if it's not 1,000 words, we actually have to figure out what are those tens and hundreds of words with which we can describe our thoughts very well, with which we can actually be able to express what's in our mind and make a picture worthy out of it. So to get the picture, you need to go back to your high school English. You need to go back to what we did as kids, which is basically to put words to our thoughts. And that's exactly how most video models and most image generation models work today. It's not rocket science. Well, it can be, but largely, more than rocket science, it is high school English. It's just getting back to how much are we able to articulate what's going on in our mind, and how much are we able to describe so a video model can understand. So descriptive writing is actually going to get more weightage to learn AI filmmaking. That's exactly why I wanted to term this particular session as prompts to pixels, because to get that pixel, to get that picture that is worth understanding, you need to understand the prompt. You need to understand what it takes for those English words. And yeah, we were talking about creativity, right? So you can still ask me, so what is AI exactly doing for creativity? I genuinely resonated with what Greg Fraser, an award-winning cinematographer, has actually told for a context about, hey, how is AI used in filmmaking? I really resonated with what he said about, let's say when probably automobile was introduced, there could have been one section of people who said, oh my God, we make carriage for a living, so what does this mean for us? This is the end of world for us. Whereas there could have also been another set of people on the other side of fence who would probably say, now you can actually put an engine to the carriage and make a car out of it. Maybe we can become automobile people. So that is where I see what GenAI could do, or what AI could do for us to create videos. And this is the section of people I was telling you in the first place, because even if you don't have ideas, AI has actually put you in a spot where you no longer have to look at a black space and say, oh, I don't have a creative idea, but you're actually in the galaxy of ideas. So idea is around you, and you just have to pick and play around with them. It's like you got a straight entry into what a possibility of idea could look like. So with that, I just want to show you what is the core of AI filmmaking. So to get to the core, obviously, writing is the first place. So I said, go back to your English, go back to knowing how to describe something. And technology is the one that works on top of this writing. So you get better at writing, and technology plays on top of your writing. So your writing is still the core skill. Taste is what is very unique to each person. So we're going to see more about how to get your taste better. But taste is what adds unique flavor from each of you into this mix. And art is a result out of this. So imagine art is not the first place. Art is what you get as a result of combining the first three. And you start to appreciate art. You start to notice how art would look like. But you don't have to be an artist. You don't have to know photography, or you don't have to be a painter to be able to appreciate AI into pictures. So that is how an AI, ultimately, a film gets made. So it's all easy, right? I mean, like I just told you, it's all English. And what we do is go to some of the actual prompt making, put our prompts, and AI is going to listen to it. Well, that's how I thought initially. So I went on, I played around with the tools, and boom, that's exactly how AI was looking back at me and giving me an output. But while the core essence still remains the same, like I would still say it is writing, it is being able to describe and actually express thoughts and ideas. I also, in the hindsight, realized that there were some techniques that I learned throughout the journey. So I'm going to keep the base of this same. At the end of the talk, it's still descriptive writing. It's still knowing how to describe something. But I'm going to articulate it through 3 methods. So we'll see one by one. So the first one is starting with ideas. So we'll see how do we pick ideas. I said we're already in a sea of ideas, right? So from that sea, how do we start noticing ideas? Then how do we start playing around with those ideas? And finally, how do we put them all together? So this, in crux, is how an AI film is made. And in the hindsight, how I ended up making a film. So the first myth that I think most of us grew up with is your ideas have to be original. I mean, like, whenever there's an idea, there's always this whole Steve Jobs concept. There's always this whole, oh, you have to have a radical idea to begin with. I mean, that's what we're getting told in product. That's what we're getting told whenever we build out a business. But in this, I just want to flip the story and actually pull out a page from one of my favorite author, Austin Kleon, from a book called Steal Like an Artist, where he says how to look at art as an artist is to actually figure out what's worth stealing, and then move on. Basically, retain whatever is worth stealing, and then move on. So this is exactly the place where I see ideas too. And by stealing in this case is more about inspiration. So start with something that you already have a certain liking towards, or you already have a certain base knowledge towards, so that your first idea that you explore with AI is always surrounded by you, and you don't have to look into vacuum to actually pick that. So in my case, what I did with this was, I realized that I grew up watching Disney films and reading Disney books. So I thought, okay, why don't I probably play around with Disney? What if probably Aladdin, instead of sitting on a carpet, is actually sitting on a pizza, and perhaps just going around the world on the pizza? And this got me into also thinking, what if in Lion King, Rafiki is actually holding a cookie and not Simba to the entire world? So this is exactly what I did. I went and I typed words that would just describe what's on my mind, and starting with something I grew up with, which is literally Disney, and then putting what came to my mind and then seeing the output. So in this case, the story eventually evolved. I thought, okay, now what if all the Disney characters were actually obsessed with food? So you start with some point where you felt like you never had an idea, but now you have a base, and you can actually pick and go about with that base. So that is the starting point. So your ideas don't have to be original. You can always steal, or you can always pick an inspiration from a place where you're more comfortable with. So you've picked an idea. So how do you grow and expand that idea? So for that, I'll show you another example where I was, some point in time, I was really obsessed with tea plantation. I was trying to think how would tea plantation look like, and perhaps it was because of a recent trip that I did. And I just went to one of the image generation tools, which is Midjourney, and I just put a couple of words there. I said, show a tea plantation where I see an Indian woman plucking the tea leaves. It gave me a beautiful, realistic image. And then I realized, oh, but you know what? If I actually have to make a video out of this, if I actually have to create a film out of this, I need to have a very detailed explanation of what I wanted to do. But I'm so new to all of this. How do I describe this? So that is where I still feel AI could help you, because all you have to do is go to one of, let's say, Claude or ChatGPT, any describing sort of a chat interface, and just directly put this image and say, come up with a prompt. I just put here that come up with a prompt to use in one of the video tools that I was using, and it gives you a base to start with. And what's nice about this base is that you don't have to literally use this. You can now, let's say, instead of probably saying that the scene is set in early morning light, I can now change that and say the scene is set in the evening light. Instead of the women directly looking at the camera, I can say, make the women look right side. Or instead of trying to say, she's slowly picking, the women's movements are slow, I could say, no, make the movements pretty quickly. She's quickly plucking the tea leaves. So now my possibilities are endless because I started off with something that expanded my ideas. So there's more scope with what you can do as long as you can play around with the tools and start with something even though you feel that it's a vacuum. So this is how the output ended up being. When I said she's slowly picking and make the movement slow, it's morning light, you can just change the entire scene by saying it's evening light and all the other examples that I was just telling you. And I started expanding on the story. I said, okay, what do you do probably after plucking the tea leaves? You will collect the tea leaves. You would probably dry them up. You would probably then package them up, or you would process. You would have women processing the tea leaves, maybe then brewing a nice cup of tea. So I started putting all of these prompts and started building on a story on top of this. If you notice the prompt, it's all plain English words. It's all probably like just 5 to 6 words, which gives you an output. But with the help of expanding on those words, I was still able to create an entire video out of most of the video models that work today. So this is how the output ended up being. Probably the easiest way you can get started with is splicing this all in single scene, but also building on top with just English words. But you're also knowing where to employ AI and use it so that your end output gets to be much more closer towards what you want. And in fact, one of the things that I like doing as I got started with this journey is also take inspiration from my own physical world. So what I started doing was I capture photos, I capture videos. So I started thinking, why should I search for vacuum for all my ideas, but why don't I just start with whatever I already captured? So I had just gone to Chettinad for a travel, and I had a video that I captured of a lady who was actually putting kolam on the ground. And I thought, okay, what if probably AI changed this? What if I want a cartoon style? That's the prompt that I gave. I want a cartoon style for this Chettinad Rangoli morning, and I wanted to show the side profile of the lady. And I picked from one of the tools, I just picked a model that matched my cartoon style. And the tool was Domo AI, and this was the output. So you're still able to use some of your personal experiences and creations as a part. So whatever you see here, the 3 images, which could look exactly like how a courtyard in Chettinad would look, how exactly a balcony in Chettinad would look, is because these are trained on my images. These are trained on original places from original cities, but we've used AI to transform that into a cartoonish style that you want. So this is where starting with your own inspiration and taking some of influences from your physical world would help. So one note that I want to leave with as we speak about ideas is there's this concept called auteur. So auteur is somebody, it's a word taken from French into English. It's adapted like any other word. And being an auteur means you're able to add your own influences and your own ideas and creative expressions to whatever you create, which could be a film, which could be a creative video. And all of us are auteurs because we have our own influences to add. We have our own thoughts and creations to add to the output. So I think with AI and in video making and filmmaking, what I see is all of us becoming authors, all of us, instead of being creative directors, we're all authors at the end of the day because each of it is actually reflecting who we are as a person. So that's about ideas. Again, you can now tell me, fine, I get it. Like, it's English, yes, you say, and you showed me some 5, 6 things. I get how it's made. But give me, how do I make this? If I have to go back today, how do I make this? I know this has been on your minds. So this is where we're going to get more specific with how do we get closer to the output that we want, and how can you all in the audience go back to start using some of the tools. So I'll show you some techniques that you can play around with, which connects all back to the same descriptive writing that I was telling you about. So it's all in the details. The first technique is going to be style off. So I told you how video models actually understand baby English, right? Like actually understand your high school English. So one of the techniques that you can use is to render the style of something. This is closer to the inspiration, the steal like an artist that I told you, but slightly different also in the sense that you can choose what style you want to transform your output to, and most video models today can capture that. For example, let's say you like Studio Ghibli style illustrations. Let's say you like Wes Anderson. Let's say you like James Cameron. Let's say you like a certain type of a film from a certain time period, let's say a classic from the 90s, or a murder mystery from the 60s, or it could be any genre, any time period, any cinematographer, any director, any photographer, any artist. Just pick the style, and most video models today can actually work around the style. So in this case, I just said, I want a Studio Ghibli style landscape, and just show me like a very idyllic environment. And I was able to get an output that was exactly how Studio Ghibli would have designed. This is very similar to Wes Anderson too. I didn't have to say use a cyan, teal, orange retro grading. I didn't have to say any of that because the model understands what Wes Anderson style means. So it's literally picking from your words and giving you an output that's very close to where you want to get. So style off is something you can remember. The next time you want to go start with an inspiration, you can say style of Pixar, style of Disney, style of whatever is more closer to your connection, and start creating an output that's very just apt to what you're thinking. The next is a little more, I would say, nuanced, but it's also something that you can still try. It's called SREF. So Midjourney is a tool. How many of you have known Midjourney or played around with Midjourney? Yeah, most of you all. So in Midjourney, there is a certain value or a parameter called SREF. It's nothing but a numeric value. So what you see on the screen on the bottom right corner is a numeric value. It's a random number. It's not a number you might have to by heart. It's a random number. But the beauty of Midjourney is for every creation that it is given out, there is a random number that gets associated with all of these creations, and that's called the seed number, the SREF number. So the SREF number is attached to a certain style. So let's say today I go and I put an input that says, I want a cute little girl sitting down with Pooh eating picnic lunch under a tree. That's just basic English that I put in. But along with that English, I'm also going to say hyphen SREF value and give this value. It's going to give me an output that is straight out of a comic book, because this value is associated with children's comic as a theme. So like this, there are tens, thousands, and now I'm seeing more than 1,000 types of SREF values available, and all for free online, where you can just go pick a style and make it map to what you want to create. If it's a pastel or a dreamy, there is an SREF number. If it's a vintage realism kind of a grading that you want, there is a number. So along with your description, you just have to put this number, and you get an output that's just very close to the output that you want. Whether it's doodly lines, whether it's very crafty. I hear some of you are saying that, okay, well, these are good for probably very crafty things, but I need it for my social media images. I need it for my business images. I need it for my headshots. It's still doable. There are some SREF values that are very close in promoting your own products, promoting your own headshots. Some lighting techniques that have actually given out a certain SREF value. You can pick some of those values and still use for your marketing images. What is there on the right is exactly out of a perfume brand that was trying to use an SREF value and create an image as quickly with some of these available tools. So this is again a very much a part of your English script that I was telling you, and the quickest hack that you can use to get to any filter. It's like what LUT files did to image and video grading, or what Instagram filters did to images. It's very quick and simple. So the other technique that I want to talk about is image character consistency. Because when we create a film, I've heard people telling that, hey, I want to set all the scenes in a certain place. I want to be able to show a certain character and make that character travel all through this narration. So in that case, it's still possible to do. So on the right, you see, once again, my English words to say, there is a girl, I want the girl to be on the mountain, spend her night at the mountain. So I've been trying to give various scenarios like, I want it as a Pixar character, I want to show a mountain peak, I want to show the sunset, basically the person's building the tent, and then suddenly she's taking a sketchbook, she's painting. All of these are just scenes that I've tried to break down. And on the left is two things that I've highlighted. For a tool like Midjourney and most of the other image generation tools, there is a way that you can lock the character and lock the image consistency in an image. So next time you're trying to put a prompt, all you have to do is upload the first generated image and mark those two values that I've circled, which locks the character and which also locks the style reference that image has. So every time you upload this image and lock these two values, all your output is going to remain similar. So at the end, you're going to get a video, an image, and hence when you put it on a video tool, a video that's all very consistent and looks like you're putting it in the same color grading or same space where this is happening. So an output such as this would appear, and you saw how my prompts were. So. So yeah, thank you. So yeah, this is how you're able to fine tune and tweak with each output that you get through. There are also a few other techniques which can get you as close to how an artist or a photographer would perform. Once again, you don't have to be one to be able to try some of these. So it's my favorite. It's called camera lenses and compositions. So next time you try to generate something, you can start using words like close-up, extreme close-up, or medium close-up, which sets what the output shot should look like, how close or how zoomed out something should look like. And these are just words that video models understand. So the next time you try to put a prompt, you can just start attaching words like what should the composition shot look like? Or even what should a certain lens look like? So you don't have to know photography to be able to use some of these values. So the trick is something that is less value. 10 mm means it's wider, which means along with the car, you also see the houses and everything around. 50 mm means close-up, which is you basically see only the character. So you don't have the surrounding pieces for the character to be shown. So higher the mm, the more closer your video or the person gets. Lesser the mm, the more surrounding elements would come. So with just knowing and playing around with these 4 values, you can have an output that's very close to how a photographer's shot would look like, or how you want to be trying something that's very HD quality with respect to the output. I tried this for one of my images. I said, I want an extreme close-up shot, but at the same time, I also want a 20 mm width because I don't want the shot to just show the froth, but I actually want it to also show the sand. I also want it to show waves gushing. Once again, focus on the prompt, very, very high school English. It's nothing, fancy. It's just what comes to your mind. Literally not even sentences. I've just given words. So it is just knowing what kind of words you repetitively give and getting very, very accurate as possible. If I want sand, I want sand. If I want ripples, I want ripples. Just be very open and just mentioning what it is, and also use some of those keywords that I said, like close-up or what kind of a shot it is. The next is camera motion controls. So once again, this is something most video models understand. So the next time you want to zoom into something, move out of something, move right, move left, you can use all of these camera angles along with your prompt. So in this case, I gave it as camera should orbit right, basically do like a circling, and it has to show an elaborate and lush growth of a sunflower field. 7 words, 8 words, less than 10 words. But video models will be able to pick up what it has to do. So when I said camera orbit right, it orbits right. It shows me more flowers from that lush growth. Or if I say crane up, it shows me how to crane up, which is go up and show me what the output should look like. So you can, some of these tools also provide this as inbuilt option. You can, with any tool like Luma, Runway, whatever you use for your output generation for video, start using some of these words, which will actually help the video model understand what it has to do with the output. So move right, move left, move up, move down. It's, once again, basic English. So one recent learning that I had, which I was very fascinated with, was the intent and speed of a scene. So when I tried generating one of the outputs, it was quite fast. And I thought, okay, how do I actually slow this down? Like, do the models understand some words if I use like gentle or slow, or if I say gradually, if I say light, subtle, does the model understand? And it actually did. So the first output you see here, the icing sugar that falls on top is very quick. I didn't want it to be that way because I thought, why don't it be very slow? Like, why can't I probably say slowly fall? Or, you know, you want to show a very dramatic scene where it's slowly falling and creating a sort of a mood. So when I just used two words, gentle movement of icing sugar and slowly falling, with just those two words, it picked up the intent of the scene, and the output was slower. And you can also use some of the words like 0.5x, or if you want to like quicken it up, you can say 2x. So it's easier that way. All the parts of this video, slow, gentle, subtle, light. There's also other things that you can play around with apart from what we saw, which is presets and models. Some tools have presets to choose, which helps you choose like a black and white theme or a monochrome theme. Along with the prompt that you give, you can also pick what output style should look like. So some of these that are available in existing tools like Visual Electric or Domo lets you choose a model or lets you choose what kind of a design should the output look like. So it's simplifying your job, right? Along with the text prompt, you also choose how the output should look and you get the action. This is the last part of fine-tuning, which is one of my favorites, called motion brushes, because we saw how camera motions can be controlled. But along with camera motions, I can also decide what parts of the image should be moving and what parts should be static. So there are tools that give you to choose this as a brush, but there is also a way that you can mention it on your text prompt. So as a matter, this is how a video looks when I move certain pieces and I don't. That is a recreation of Humpy, and again, one of my physical influence stealing up from whatever I had in my own images. So the other details you can play around with are lighting. Like I said, you can choose those words like cinematic, dramatic, foggy, golden hour. Color grading, where you can use words like Wes Anderson style, or you can also say that you want to go with certain colors. And quality, again, you can say you want a HD, 8K, 4K quality, and your video models will still be able to pick up. So these are words you can start using when you try it next time. The last part is about how do we curate these together, because we saw how all the films we saw now have a certain vibrant element along with the video, which is the audio. So how do you add BGM sounds, music clips, and narration as you combine them together? So for tools like Levin Labs and a bunch of text to audio tools, once again, it's just English. And if you notice here, I would have just given, for different water sounds, I would have just given a few words like ripple sound. I even said clam instead of calm, and it picked up. In calm surface of water, or let's say deep sea, middle of the ocean, turbulence waves. All of it is water sound, but with each, I just gave words that are very pertinent to a certain style of sound of water. And the output sound that I gave, that came from these models, I just stitched them together, so this is how the output was. And it's not just these sound effects, but you can also generate lyrics and you can also generate instrumental music with these tools. So once again, you can give text prompts like Gothic Cathedral reverberation because it's resonating the sound, or let's say temple music that is probably using Indian instruments. Just start using words, and a tool like Audio, for example, would create an output along with the lyrics that you can also edit the lyrics and it will sing for you as you edit the lyrics. So yeah, this is just a snapshot of a bunch of tools in AI that you can start using today. Most of the outputs are from these tools. Whatever I showed you today are mostly from these tools. So it's a mix of image, video, audio, generative tools. And most of these also have free credits for you to actually try them out, and using some of the techniques that I just told you. Once again, reiterating, it is coming back to English, being able to describe, and soon it's going to become voice, but yeah, being able to describe. And this is what I see as the future of AI films and videos. It could help in interactive videos and games where the next move is very generative, not preset. Or it could also help in concept videos, shopping videos, brand videos, or sitcoms and short stories, which is where I am really focusing on. So yeah, I hope this session gave you like a starter into how to generate with AI. And also to come back to all of this, let's start experimenting with what we already know and not really think that we don't have the idea, because sometimes what we start with is the base and what possibilities could come out of AI is different. So yeah, with that said, I'm open for questions. I'll be around for the next, as the event ends. So you can catch me outside if you want to get started. Happy to help you with this. But yeah, that's about it from me. Thank you so much for listening.